What's up with it, y'all? It's JD and James, and we're back with another quick video. In today's video, we want to kind of share with you guys a little bit about our mindset. And James brought up an interesting point earlier when we were talking about risk taking and the way that a lot of people think about taking risks in life. And they always think about the negatives that can happen when you take risks, opposed to looking at the positives that can happen when you take risks. And one thing that, at least for me, when I think of risk, I think of a lot of times is that we're following our dreams, that we're chasing our dreams, that we're, going 10 toes in on what our passions are. And that's kind of what risks are, is that you're not going 50-50. It's not like you're playing it safe. You're going all the way in, you're taking a risk, and you're taking that chance to do something great. So James, why don't you expand on kind of what you were saying earlier in terms of that mindset of taking risks?
Yeah, I think we were just talking about when it comes to risk taking, it's so easy to just be caught up in always the worst case scenario. But for me, anytime there's something that's going to be uncertain in the future, or I guess you could say quote unquote has risk to it, you should always analyze, the cost benefit analysis. So if something is risky, but then if it goes through, the benefits are going to be tremendous, then it's probably a risk worth taking. But if there's something that's super high risk, but then the reward, if it works out, isn't that great, it might not be a risk that you want to take. But I think too, a lot of times it's easy to think about what we can lose when we take a risk, and then we don't think about the potential, what we could have lost out on or what could have been, I think when it comes to kind of being an entrepreneur, it's very similar to fitness. It's one of those things where it's very, very delayed. It's like you're planting seeds that you're not going to see the results from until maybe a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. It takes an extremely long period of time to actually see the results from your work, and that can be frustrating. But I think you always have to think of the goal you're going towards and not get caught up in all the negatives that could happen. And then I think what we were also talking about earlier is also our limiting beliefs. And this is for all aspects of our life. Right now we're in a gated community here in Hawaii, Lower Ridge. Starting houses here are about 2 million, goes all the way up to 30 million. And what's interesting is, there's all types of people in this neighborhood. And, you have doctors here, dentists, entrepreneurs, real estate agents, all different types of people. But if you actually have a conversation with them, you realize they're no different from you. A lot of them will probably come from a very similar background to yourself. But, they had this long-term goal. And for them, it was finances. But then on the fitness side of things, it's very similar. Don't get caught in an identity. If you're currently overweight and you want to lose weight, don't label yourself mentally as an overweight person. Don't identify with that. Don't put limiting beliefs on yourself. It's not necessary. As humans, that's one of the biggest gifts we have, is that we're dynamic. We can change. We're not stuck. We're not static. So just about anything in life, there's certain things you can't change, but for the vast majority of things, when it comes to skills, when it comes to your health, when it comes to your career, these are all dynamic things that can be worked on and improved. So don't view yourself as a static person. Don't view yourself as what you were 5 years ago. View yourself as this person that's changing every day, and you're aiming towards a target. And you're going to have to grow to reach that. You're going to have to do things that you never thought you were capable of doing.
We should all be constantly evolving. And honestly, when it comes down to these limiting beliefs, I think that it's extremely important that we don't get caught up in this kind of identity of where we came from or where we started at. That's just where you started at. That doesn't necessarily mean that's where you're going to end up, or that doesn't necessarily mean that you're bound to that place. You might come from a low-income neighborhood, you might come from a middle-class neighborhood, but that might be who you were as a child, or that might be how you came up as a child, and you learn things from those situations. But at the end of the day, you can always improve, you can always build your knowledge base up, and you can always achieve to higher levels. You're never stuck in one state. You know what I mean? Just like James said, in terms of just thinking of it from your body composition. You might be overweight or you might be skinny. But the thing is that you don't necessarily have to stay there. If you put the work in, you acquire the fitness knowledge, you put the effort in, you stay consistent, you're gonna build up a nice physique. It's the same thing with your finances. It's the same thing with your careers or anything like that. And I think when it comes down to risk taking, just to get back on the topic of risk taking, I think that if we don't take risks in our younger years, as we get older, we're gonna start regretting that more and more.
And that's actually a huge risk too that people don't think about. You guys out there that are 18 to early 20s, you have no kids. Now is really the time to make the bigger risks. Now you don't have kids to take care of. Now is the time where you can really just try so many different things. And honestly, I've attempted countless different business ventures since I moved out to Hawaii 8 years ago. Some of them went really well and made a bit of money from them, and then other ones crashed and burned. But every single one I learned just countless information from it that I kind of took and applied it to different areas of my life. Could be negotiation, it could be time management that you learn, it could be even reading people and building people skills and knowing the kind of people that you can trust and that the people that are going to be reliable. So it really is just a process of just constant growth and then kind of getting out of your own way, because it's very easy to kind of box ourselves in, and I think that happens on a larger scale as well. We want to put other people in boxes, but then we also put ourselves in a box. And when we kind of break through that kind of holding pattern that we're being stuck in, we realize that there's so many more things that you're capable of. If you didn't play sports growing up in high school, you might identify as not being an athletic person. And the same thing as if you weren't an academic, you didn't prioritize school back when you were in high school, then you might not view yourself as being capable in that realm. But at the end of the day, all of that stuff, it's complete, it's just pure limiting beliefs. If you actually put in focused, you put in focused work into whatever area you're trying to improve at, and you get into that flow state, I mean, you can practically learn anything you want, any skill, language. This applies to all aspects.
Another thing about when you put in that focus and you put in that hard work and consistency is that risks when you're taking risks, they don't even seem like risks at that point, because it seems so natural and you're moving in flow. And I talked about this on a couple of my other videos about having that unconscious faith. When you have that unconscious faith in yourself, you take risks and you don't even think about it. It's just something that you really, really want, something that you have as a dream and something that you have as a big goal, and you just chase after it. And I can think about this on a couple of different occasions in my life. Number one would be just traveling the world. I've been all over the world. I've been to 5 different continents, over 30 different countries. I've traveled all over the world, seen all types of cultures, heard all types of languages, met all types of people, and it's been a wonderful experience for me. And coming from where I come from, a lot of the people I grew up with have this super small world view, but you can never get rid of that world view unless you take that risk and take that leap of faith and actually go places. Man, I can remember going out to Japan when I first started going to Japan. I remember going to Japan, I had $100 in my bank account. I took a flight to Japan with $100. I literally went out there because I had a homeboy who stayed out there. I told myself I'm gonna go to Japan for 5 days. I used to go to the clubs for free when I was in Japan because my boy worked at a club. And then my boy just got out of prison when he was in Japan, living in Japan. He was broke too, but he just let me stay on his couch, and we just ate Family Mart chicken, which was like 99 cents for a piece of chicken, bought beer and coffee. That's literally all I lived off of when I was in Japan. Well, I used to do that all the time. The brokest I ever went out there, I think it was $120 in my bank account, but I still took that risk. I still went out there and had a good time, ended up meeting a lot of people, and then in the long term, in the long run of me spending my time in Japan, I ended up starting an Airbnb business out there. I took my last $3,000 that I had and that I had in my bank account, started up an Airbnb business, rented an apartment, took a risk, bought the furniture, ended up making that much money and more back in the first month, ended up getting more apartments, and ended up creating a business by going to Japan and starting that Airbnb business just straight up out of faith. I just believed in it, and I knew it, just something in my heart, something in my gut. I knew it was gonna work out. I took that risk and I went out there and did it. And then I was living in Japan for about 3 years, had that business running for about 4 years. And it kind of propelled me into doing other things. And by doing that, I gained more confidence. And now that I'm older, I'm 36. I was probably about 28 or something like that when I started that business. But now that I'm 36, I just have a self-belief that I can do anything. I can start any business I want to. And that's another thing I want to touch on as well, is that getting comfortable in these jobs is not a good thing to do. You cannot get comfortable in these jobs, especially if it's something that you don't really have passion about. Now, if you have a job that you have passion about and that fulfills you, brings you joy, that's not necessarily what I consider a job. I consider that a career. So there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're somebody who kind of has that entrepreneurial spirit, you have dreams, you have lofty goals, chase after them. And at a young age, put the work in and take those risks. Because the longer and longer it takes for you to start taking those risks, the harder it's going to be to take those risks, and the harder it's going to be for you to kind of step out on a limb, go 10 toes in, and just dive straight into the deep end and take those risks to be an entrepreneur, or to follow your dreams, or to go travel the world. For me, it's traveling the world just seems like second nature, but for a lot of people, it's something that they're extremely scared of doing. And for me, because I did it at such a young age, because I have like a background of traveling, it's like for me to just jump on an international flight is nothing. Because at the end of the day, the worst case scenario, you just come back to the United States. You know what I mean?
It'll be waiting for you when they're there. And we were talking the other day as well about different environments. And, we use kind of a lot of plant analogies when it comes to growth. And every place in the world, or different states, if you're in the US, they all provide a different culture, a different environment, and you actually might find that you might not be valued in your current community wherever you come from, and you might find that somewhere else in the world actually they appreciate your gifts, and they actually it makes you have like this insane growth, and you're actually kind of meant for that environment. It's kind of funny too when you think about gardening, right? Certain plants love tons of sunlight and tons of water, and then for other plants, if you give it too much sunlight, too much water, it's dead within less than a week. So we all are different people, and then we all thrive in different environments. And I think traveling, one of the biggest things that does from a growth perspective, is it kind of shows you what environment you thrive in. And you really do, you see different sides of yourself, you kind of see different things that you didn't even know about yourself. You didn't even know you had that skill or that personality trait until you put yourself in.
Not to cut you off, James, but I actually literally just had a conversation with one of my friends last night about this, and it was about how when you do take that risk and you step out and you travel, a lot of times we feel a lot more freer than we feel like when we're in our home environment, or we're in the environment that that we came up in. Because just like James said earlier, we can put ourselves in a box, other people might put us in a box, but when we travel, it's almost like we can reinvent ourselves, and we can kind of let our guard down a little bit. We're in a completely different culture, so maybe we're more prone to try different things, or we're prone to share ourselves a little bit more, the real person that we have inside of us. And I could think about this when I was growing up. I grew up in the Bay Area, and I grew up going to the Richmond Public School District.